Too much mud, sipping on James the Reaper, nigga. Scroll through pictures of myself, gotta face my demons, nigga. If no one else, I'ma do it myself, I plan to leave a nigga. Front on, I'm gon' lead on my own. Hustlin', ballin', got it right now, I'm strong.
Meet the fastest running back of all time. Yo, what it do? It's your boy Campus TV, man. We back with another video. We back with another reaction. In today's video, y'all see the title, man. You know, y'all see the title. We got Chris Johnson, Mr. 2000. Wow. And you know he was on Madden back then. I think his speed was like 99. But if you're new to the channel, man, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, man. Let's get into this video. Let's go, man.
Chris Johnson was a speed demon. From running the fastest 40 time ever by a running back to becoming one of just 9 players to rush for over 2,000 yards in a season, CJ2K was unlike any back we'd ever seen. But was it just his speed that made him great? Or was there more to his game that turned him into one of the most electrifying running backs the league has ever seen? The need for speed started when Johnson was just a kid, attending Olympia High School in Orlando. As a freshman, he wasn't yet the freak of nature we came to know. He was undersized, skinny, and far from the most intimidating player on the field. Once he got the ball in his hands, defenders might as well have been chasing shadows. And Johnson's speed wasn't just limited to the football field. He was also a track star. In the 100-meter dash, he clocked 10.38 seconds, a time that would have been competitive at the college level. But as much as he excelled in track, his heart belonged to football. And by his senior year, Johnson racked up over 1,000 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. But despite his production and speed, scouts weren't convinced. At just under 5'11" and 200 pounds, he was labeled too small and only earned a 2-star rating from Rivals.com. And so, the big-time programs passed on him, and even the mid-level schools hesitated. But East Carolina University saw something special and took the chance on CJ. As a freshman in 2004, Johnson didn't get many chances at running back, but his blazing speed still made an impact on special teams. And by his sophomore and junior seasons, his role slowly started to expand. But it was his senior year when everything changed. After working tirelessly to add muscle and improve his versatility, Johnson became the focal point of ECU's offense. He erupted for 1,423 rushing yards and 17 touchdowns, while averaging nearly 7 yards per carry. His vision, combined with breakaway speed, made him one of the most dangerous runners in college football. But Johnson wasn't just a runner. He was a do-it-all weapon. His ability to catch passes out of the backfield made him even more dangerous, finishing with 528 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns through the air. And as a return specialist, he was a nightmare, racking up 1,009 return yards and 1 touchdown. And by the end of the season, his combined rushing, receiving, and return numbers totaled a jaw-dropping 2,960 all-purpose yards. It was the kind of statistical dominance that didn't just turn heads. It redefined what a college running back could do. His versatility and big playability made it impossible for NFL scouts to...
They probably had him in slot and all them linebackers can't keep up with him because he was too fast. Yeah, so yeah, at wide receiver, yeah, I could see that.
But of course, there were still questions. Was he just a college standout? And because he didn't play in a Power 5 conference, would his production be the same against tougher competition? And so, while teams were intrigued, they still weren't sold. Until the 40-yard dash. Johnson blazed through the run in 4.24 seconds, setting a new record for the fastest 40 in combine history at the time. And his performance didn't stop there. He posted a 35-inch vertical leap and a 10'10" broad jump, showcasing explosiveness that few could match. In fact, Johnson ranked first among all running backs in athleticism, earning the highest overall score in the 2008 Combine with an impressive 91. To celebrate, he even got a diamond-encrusted stopwatch with his 40 time. Suddenly, NFL teams weren't just looking at a fast, skilled college player. They were seeing a potential game changer. So as the draft approached, Johnson's stock skyrocketed from a possible mid-round pick to one of the hottest names in the class. He had the potential to be elite, but potential is a dangerous word. Then with the 24th overall pick in the 2008 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans selected Chris Johnson.
Tennessee Titans select Chris Johnson, running back, East Carolina.
The Titans already had Lendale White, a bruising back fresh off an 1,100-yard season, so Johnson was seen as more of a change of pace option. But it didn't take long for the rookie to prove he was anything but Plan B. In his debut against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Johnson flashed his potential, rushing for 93 yards on 15 carries and adding 34 yards plus a touchdown through the air. His speed unmatched. NFL defenders could only watch as he zipped past them, leaving them grasping at air. Week after week, he kept delivering the kinds of plays that made highlight reels. 168 yards and a touchdown in Week 7 against the Chiefs, 125 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Lions. Then another 136 yards and a touchdown the very next week against the Browns. Johnson's ability to break long runs and juke defenders made him an instant sensation. And by season's end, he became the focal point of the Titans offense. Despite being the new guy in a backfield with a proven veteran, Johnson finished his rookie campaign with 1,228 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns, and an impressive 4.9 yards per carry.
That's crazy. That was just for, he was a rookie backup. Man, that's crazy.
With leading all rookie running backs with 1,488 total yards from scrimmage. The Titans leaned on Johnson's speed and versatility as they dominated the AFC, finishing with an NFL best 13-3 record. And in the divisional round of the playoffs against the Ravens, Johnson was determined to take his game to the next level. And in the first half, he started strong with 72 yards and a touchdown. But then he suffered an ankle injury that sidelined him for the rest of the game. It wasn't just a devastating blow for CJ. It was devastating for the Titans as a whole, as they would go on to lose 13-10. But even with the playoff loss, one thing was clear. Johnson was the guy. In a league dominated by powerful running backs, Johnson's lightning-fast speed was changing the game, and his flair extended well off the field. He wasn't afraid to stand out, rocking gold-capped teeth and cruising around in his pink BMW. So,
that's just a Florida thing. That's just a Florida thing for you. He from Florida, so that's just a Florida thing. That's what we like to do. It's our culture.
After an incredible rookie season, he was ready to take his game to the next level, even saying in an interview that he would rush for over 2,000 yards. But even Johnson knew that idea was far-fetched. He even promised to get his offensive linemen cars if he did it. Only it turned out the idea wasn't as crazy as we thought. The 2009 season didn't start as anyone had hoped.
He knocked it off his own chest.
The Titans lost their first 6 games, including a brutal 59-0 beatdown from Brady and the Patriots. All of a sudden, the future was uncertain, and the pressure was mounting. But in Week 8, everything changed. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Johnson turned the season around with one of the most memorable performances of his career. 228 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. It was more than just a game.
I remember that.
Here's the handoff to Chris Johnson.
It was the turning point for Johnson and the entire Titans team. From that moment on, there was no stopping him. He followed it up with back-to-back 130-plus yard games. And even though defenses knew what was coming, they just couldn't stop him. His combination of world-class speed and surprising power made him a threat to score from anywhere on the field. And as the weeks went by, it became apparent that Johnson was on pace to do something special. He finished the season with 11 consecutive 100-plus yard games, setting an NFL record. And that feat helped him become only the 6th player in NFL history to rush for over 2,000 yards in a single season, finishing with 2,006 yards on 358 carries, averaging 5.6 yards per attempt. He was a man possessed.
I knew when we broke the long run that I was over 2,000. It means a lot for me to get to 2,000 yards. Only 6 players ever to do it.
But his dominance didn't stop there, because Johnson also added 503 receiving yards on 50 receptions, giving him 2,509 yards from scrimmage, the most in a single season in NFL history. So in a season of pure dominance, Johnson earned the nickname CJ2K, won the NFL Offensive Player of the Year award, made the Pro Bowl, and was named first-team All-Pro, and had officially established himself as the most explosive and dynamic running back in the league at just 24 years old. The only problem was that he told his offensive lineman that he would buy him cars, but he was still on his rookie contract and not making that kind of money.
I was doing the interview. I said, I'm going to rush 2,000 yards. And I bid off something that I couldn't handle. I said, if I rush 2,000 yards, I'm going to buy all my offensive linemen a car. Did you do it? I'm still on rookie contract. Come on. What I did was I kind of played a joke. I ended up getting remote control cars.
Entering the 2010 season, Johnson wasted no time in picking up where he left off, with 142 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns against the Oakland Raiders in the Titans' opening game. However, the road ahead wasn't as smooth as it had been to close out the previous season. While Johnson remained the focal point of the Titans' offense, the team's struggles were impossible to ignore. The offensive line wasn't as dominant, and defenses loaded the box, daring Tennessee, who still didn't have a stable quarterback, to pass the ball. But even with the extra attention from the defenders, Johnson proved he was still a force to be reckoned with. By mid-season, he had already surpassed 1,000 rushing yards, and Johnson finished the year with 1,364 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns.
Still
Despite his
good.
efforts, the Titans finished a disappointing 6-10, missing the playoffs for the second straight year. 2011 began on a high note, as Chris Johnson signed a 4-year, $53.5 million extension with the Titans. But on the field, things didn't change much. Once again, Johnson surpassed 1,000 rushing yards. But despite his efforts, the Titans fell short of the playoffs. And the worst part, his once explosive playmaking seemed to be fading. In the first 3 games of the 2012 season, Johnson totaled just 45 rushing yards combined, averaging 1.4 yards per carry. It seemed as though he was a shooting star that had already burned out. But then, as he so often had before, Johnson flipped the script. In Week 4 against the Houston Texans, he finally broke out,
Johnson's got room. Chris Johnson, the
rushing for 141 yards. Then, in Week 7 against the Buffalo Bills, he erupted for 195 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Later in the season, Johnson showed that he still had his home run ability, breaking off a 94-yard touchdown run, which was the longest rushing play in the NFL that year. Despite the ups and downs, CJ still managed to cross the 1,000-yard mark for the 5th straight season, finishing with 1,243 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns on 276 carries. But the trend continued. Despite Johnson's continued greatness, the Titans continued to miss the playoffs, and they were reaching their breaking point. The team started to give up on Johnson, bringing in free agent running back Sean Green to help share the workload. But CJ2K would not go down without a fight. 2013 was another year with more electrifying plays from Johnson, more defenders left in the dust, and his 6th straight 1,000-yard season. But something was different. He wasn't hitting holes quite as hard. The big plays weren't happening as often. And whispers started to spread that maybe CJ2K was losing a step. But what nobody knew at the time was that he played the entire season with a torn meniscus. Week after week, he suited up, cutting, planting, exploding on a bad knee that should have taken him off the field. And still he put up over 1,000 yards. But despite this, the Titans made a business decision, releasing Johnson after the season and ending an era in Tennessee.
Chris Johnson's days in two-tone blue are over.
Given Chris Johnson's dwindling production and hefty $8 million salary, the Titans saying, so long, CJ, makes sense. It's number 28 refused to take a pay cut, so instead, he's cut.
Playing a guy through an injury, then cutting him after he gave everything for the team, it felt like a bit of a betrayal to Johnson. Though his production had dipped, his ability to break out on any given play kept him on the radar of teams looking for one last shot at greatness. And it wouldn't take long before another team gave him a chance, the New York Jets.
They get CJ2K, the deal, basically 2 years, $8 million.
However, Johnson's role with the Jets was vastly different from what he'd been accustomed to in Tennessee. No longer the undisputed feature back, Johnson found himself sharing carries with Chris Ivory, forming the Chris Squared backfield. His debut in a Jets uniform started strong as he racked
I remember Chris Ivory, boy. I remember him.
68 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown against the Oakland Raiders, showing glimpses of his former self. But as the season dragged on, it became painfully clear that Johnson was no longer the same explosive force that once dominated the NFL. Long runs became rare, and more often than not, he found himself tangled up behind the line of scrimmage, unable to break free from defenders. The familiar burst that once left defenders chasing ghosts had faded. So, the Jets moved on, and so did Johnson. Once again, he found himself as a free agent. But this time, before free agency could even begin, Johnson's life took an unexpected turn. In a drive-by shooting in Orlando, Johnson was struck in the shoulder, but miraculously, he survived.
Former Olympia High and NFL star Chris Johnson was riding in early Sunday, was intentionally targeted during a drive-by shooting. The incident left the Jeep driver dead and Johnson and another man wounded.
This was his second off-field incident that offseason, following a January arrest for the open carry of a firearm. After the shooting, Johnson spent weeks in the hospital, reporting even getting to as low as 160 pounds. This, along with the mental trauma the tragedy likely had on Johnson, worried teams. But despite the risks, the Arizona Cardinals decided to take a gamble on him, betting he would recover well and that his explosive speed could still make an impact. Initially brought in as a depth player behind Andre Ellington and rookie David Johnson, the 30-year-old veteran quickly showed that he still had something left in the tank. When Ellington went down with an injury in Week 1, Johnson had his chance. By week 3, he was already turning heads, rushing for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns against the San Francisco 49ers. Johnson continued to impress as the Cardinals leaned on him as their primary back. In week 5 against the Detroit Lions, he posted 103 yards on 11 carries, including a 40-yard run that showcased the speed everyone fell in love with. And a few weeks later, he shredded the Baltimore Ravens for 122 yards on 18 carries, helping the Cardinals to a 26-18 win.
A lot of people think that Chris Johnson is an old back. He's 30 years old, Mike.
He's young still.
Just as it seemed like Johnson finally had revived his career, he suffered a fractured tibia. At the time of the injury, Johnson ranked 4th in the NFL with 814 rushing yards, averaging 4.2 yards per carry and scoring 3 touchdowns. It was a devastating blow. Not only did it rob him of a chance to help the Cardinals in the postseason, it also marked the beginning of a series of injuries that would continue to plague him. After a groin injury and a wrist injury, it was clear that time had caught up with the once electric back. He struggled to find running lanes and lacked the explosive burst that had once defined his game. And by the end of the 2017 season, he decided to call it quits on his legendary career. So, how good was Chris Johnson actually? At his peak, he was virtually untouchable, blazing past defenders with world-class speed, making even the best defenses look helpless. Coaches and players adjusted their entire defensive strategy to contain him. Teams would stack the box or push safeties closer to the line of scrimmage in a desperate attempt to stop him, but it rarely worked. Johnson finished his career with 9,651 rushing yards, 55 rushing touchdowns, and 2,255 receiving yards with 9 receiving touchdowns. Those numbers put him among the most productive backs of his era, and his 2006 rushing yards in 2009 still stand as one of the greatest single-season performances by any running back ever. But here's the thing. Johnson wasn't just about speed. He was also incredibly durable, playing a full 16-game season in 6 of his first 7 years. This consistency allowed him to rack up over 1,000 rushing yards in 6 consecutive seasons. And while his speed was his trademark, his versatility was perhaps his greatest weapon. Whether rushing or receiving, Johnson could make an impact anywhere on the field. And that's how good Chris Johnson was, actually. If you enjoyed this video, stick with Blitz, subscribe, and check out some of our other content right here.
I mean, if you enjoyed this video, like you said, subscribe. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment, leave a share. We will get you with you next video. See y'all.